I'm 19 now, but this all started when I was 17. I thought my biggest worry back then was getting into the college I wanted and saving up for a car that wouldn't break down on the highway. I lived with my parents in a quiet town, the kind where you recognize the cashier at every store and nothing truly interesting ever happens. Or at least that's what I believed. My dad was a simple guy, a mechanic, worked long hours, came home smelling like oil and rust. He wasn't overly affectionate, but he wasn't cold either, just normal. My mom stayed home, baked too much banana bread, and micromanaged my every move, the kind of woman who would text me, "Where are you?" if I didn't answer within 10 minutes of leaving school. One Saturday morning, Dad asked me to drive him to a customer's house to drop off some tools. Nothing out of the ordinary, except he seemed weirdly specific about the directions. He didn't want to use Google Maps, and he made me take the long route, avoiding the highway completely. We ended up in this small neighborhood I'd never been to before, even though it was barely 20 minutes from home. I parked outside a neat little house with a white picket fence and overgrown roses. He told me to wait in the car. He'd just be a minute. But he was gone for almost 10, and then I saw it. Through the front window, a teenage girl, maybe around my age, walked by holding a plate. Behind her, a woman followed. I only caught a glimpse of her, but my stomach dropped because she looked just like my dad. Same eyes, same chin, same serious expression. At first, I convinced myself it was a coincidence. Maybe it was just the light. Maybe I was imagining it. I even laughed to myself like I was being dramatic. But when Dad came back to the car, he was rattled, like actually shaken. He muttered something about traffic and told me to take a different route back home. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something was gnawing at that house, that girl, that woman. It didn't feel random. The next day, while my parents were at church, I took Dad's receipt book from the garage and flipped through it. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Maybe the name of that customer. Instead, I found something much worse. An envelope tucked into the back. Inside were 5 birthday cards, addressed to someone named Lily, and signed every time, "Love you always, Dad." But my name's not Lily, and he never once wrote me birthday cards like that. After finding the birthday cards, I sat on the cold garage floor for what felt like hours. I kept rereading the name, Lily. The handwriting was unmistakably his. I even traced the ink with my fingers like maybe I'd suddenly realize it was a mistake, but it wasn't. "Love you always, Dad." He never signed my cards like that. In fact, I couldn't remember the last time he even gave me a card. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't sleep either. The next morning, I skipped school and drove back to that same neighborhood. I parked a few houses down from the white fence house and just sat there, watching, hoping no one would think I was some creep staking the place out. After about 20 minutes, I saw her again. The girl, Lily. She walked out with a backpack and earbuds in, got into a small blue car, and drove off. My stomach twisted. I was staring at someone who was probably my sister, and I didn't even know if she knew I existed. That thought nearly made me throw up. I wasn't brave enough to knock on the door, so I waited until she was out of sight. Then I drove off too. But I didn't go home. I went to my best friend's house, Layla. She was the only person I could trust not to blow up the situation or tell anyone. I showed her the cards, told her everything. Her first reaction? Denial. She thought maybe Lily was a cousin or a family friend. But the longer we talked, the more it sank in. There was a whole life happening just 20 minutes from mine, and I had no clue. We spent the afternoon digging. I remembered the address, so we pulled it up online, searched property records, even looked at social media accounts connected to that street. Layla's a genius at this kind of thing. Eventually, we found the woman, Claire Taylor. She had a Facebook account set to public, and there, in her tagged photos, was Lily Taylor. I swear my heart stopped when I found an old photo of her as a kid, standing next to my dad. He looked younger, happier, maybe even lighter. The caption said, "Lily's 10th birthday with her favorite guy." That photo was posted 7 years ago, which meant she was 17 now. Same age as me. I felt like the world was folding in on itself. While I was blowing out candles at Chuck E. Cheese with 3 cousins and a cake from Walmart, my dad was at another party with another daughter. How do you even begin to process something like that? And worst of all, why the hell did he bring me there that day? Was it a mistake? Did he panic when I saw the girl through the window? Or was it on purpose? Was he trying to show me something without saying it? I didn't know what scared me more, that he had a whole secret life, or that maybe he wanted me to find out. For the next 2 days, I couldn't look at my dad the same way. Every time he walked into a room, my mind screamed liar. I wanted to ask him, scream at him, do something, but I kept my mouth shut. I watched him, closely. I started noticing things I'd always overlooked, like how his phone always stayed face down on the table, how he took random work calls in the garage and locked the door behind him, how he started working Saturdays a few months ago, even though his shop used to be closed on weekends. Looking back, it was all there, all the signs. I just never saw them until now. By Thursday, I couldn't take it anymore. My emotions were boiling under the surface, and I needed answers. But instead of going to him, I went to the one place he always kept private, his basement office. He was at work. My mom was out running errands. I had a window. I snuck downstairs, my heart beating so hard I thought it would give me away. The office was cluttered. Old receipts, dusty boxes, car parts stacked in the corner. But in the middle of it all was a locked filing cabinet. Typical. I started rummaging through drawers, not really knowing what I was looking for. After 15 minutes, I was ready to give up, until I opened the very last drawer of his desk. There it was. A flash drive, unlabeled. I pocketed it and ran upstairs like I'd just robbed a bank. Back in my room, I plugged it into my laptop and waited. At first, it looked like a bunch of old work files, tax stuff, invoices, spreadsheets. Nothing interesting. I almost clicked out, but then I saw a folder named Family. I hesitated. My fingers hovered over the mouse. My chest felt tight. When I opened it, I found a dozen photos. Some were old. My dad as a young guy. Pictures from before I was born. But then I saw one that made my breath catch. It was a photo of maybe 6 years old, sitting on a swing at the park, and standing behind me, Claire, the woman from the Facebook profile, smiling, holding the chains of the swing like she was pushing me. In that moment, I realized something horrifying. This woman, this stranger, had met me before, and I had no idea. But the real punch to the gut came with the next photo. Lily and me, side by side, sitting on a picnic blanket. We must have been toddlers. She had a juice box, and I was holding a stuffed bear I used to carry everywhere back then. The date on the photo? He had introduced us before, maybe even played the two-family game when we were too young to notice, which means this lie wasn't new, it was lifelong. I slammed the laptop shut and just sat there, shaking. I felt sick. It wasn't just that he had another family, it was that we were part of it, even if only for a little while, and for some reason, he buried it all, until now. After finding those photos, I couldn't pretend anymore. I was done sitting in silence, done playing detective in my own house. Someone had to know something. Someone had to have helped him keep this secret, and the only person that made sense was my mom. That night at dinner, I couldn't even look at her. She was talking about groceries, something boring and normal, but all I could think was, how much do you know? I kept playing the photo over and over in my head. Me and Lily, together. Claire pushing me on a swing like she was just another mom at the park. I couldn't have been older than 3 or 4, which meant this wasn't just some random one-night thing my dad tried to hide. It was a second life, and it started before I was even old enough to remember. The next day, I skipped school again. I waited for my mom to finish her morning chores, then cornered her in the kitchen. I didn't ease into it. I just dropped the bomb. I told her I knew about Claire. I told her I knew about Lily, and I asked the question I'd been scared to even say out loud. Did you know? Her face went pale so fast I thought she might faint. She tried to play dumb, asked what I was talking about, but I wasn't backing down. I told her about the photo, the flash drive, the birthday cards, the picnic blanket. That's when she broke, and what she told me changed everything. Yes, she knew. She'd known for over a decade. According to her, Claire was someone my dad met before they got married, but he never fully cut ties. He claimed he was helping her out when she got pregnant. At first it was just money, then visits, and slowly it turned into something more. But here's the worst part. My mom said she agreed to stay with him. She chose to stay, as long as he never brought that other family into our lives. She said she'd made him promise, that I'd never have to know. So basically, she traded the truth for the illusion of a normal life. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, I did it, to protect you. But that didn't feel like protection. That felt like betrayal. I asked her one last thing, if she ever met Lily, if she'd ever spoken to Claire. She hesitated, then nodded. Once, she whispered. Only once. She came to the house. You were still a baby. She wanted your dad to be with her instead. She didn't say how that ended, but I didn't need her to, because now I understood something I hadn't before. This wasn't a secret my dad carried alone. This was a deal, a dirty little agreement between two people who thought I'd never find out, and now I had to figure out what to do with that truth. After my mom admitted she knew, I couldn't stay in the same house for long. I drove around aimlessly, blasting music I wasn't really listening to, trying to make sense of everything. It's a weird thing, to realize your childhood was built on a lie, and that everyone around you just went along with it like it was normal. I didn't text Layla. I didn't talk to anyone. I needed time to think. But of course, thinking only made it worse. By the time I got home that night, my dad was already there. He greeted me like usual, asking about school, completely unaware that the quiet storm he'd been dodging for years was about to hit him dead in the face. I didn't confront him, not yet, but I did something else. I asked to borrow his truck that weekend, said I wanted to look at a used car with Layla. He didn't even hesitate, tossed me the keys and told me to drive safe. That's when I knew he wasn't suspicious. He still thought I was in the dark. The truck was my ticket to the truth. On Friday night, after everyone went to sleep, I went outside and checked the glove box. There wasn't much. An old charger, a gas station receipt. but tucked into the visor was a folded paper, one of those handwritten schedules my dad always made for work pickups. Only this one wasn't for work. It had 2 addresses listed. No customer names, no car models, nothing about parts or repairs. Just one address for Friday afternoon, and another for Sunday morning. I Googled both. The first one was a park. The second was Claire's house, his second home. My hands started shaking. The park was just a few blocks from her neighborhood, and based on the timestamp next to it, 4 p.m., he'd been hanging out before going over there, like he was easing into it, enjoying it. I snapped a picture of the note, put everything back exactly the way it was, and returned inside like nothing had happened, but I wasn't going to wait around anymore. I texted Layla at midnight, "I need you tomorrow. No questions." She responded in seconds. Saturday morning, we followed him. He left around noon in his usual mechanic gear, old hoodie, baseball cap, faded jeans. If you didn't know him, you'd think he was just some tired guy heading to a job site, but we knew better. We followed from a few cars back, keeping distance, taking turns if the road narrowed. My heart was thumping so loud I could feel it in my throat. He didn't drive to the shop. He didn't even come close. Instead, he parked near that same park I'd Googled, the one just blocks from Claire's house. Layla and I pulled into a grocery store lot across the street and waited, cameras ready. He got out, stretched, looked around, and then Lily showed up. She ran up to him like it was routine. He hugged her like she was his whole world. He had that smile I hadn't seen in years, the kind of smile he never gave me any. They sat on a bench and talked for a while, too far for us to hear, but we didn't need sound. The body language said everything. She was his daughter, and he was her dad. After about 30 minutes, they walked off together, heading in the direction of Claire's house. Layla turned to me, barely whispering, "You still think this was about protecting you?" I didn't answer, because in that moment something shifted. This wasn't about a mistake he made a long time ago. This was a life he was still living, and I was just the shadow on the other side of it. I didn't go home that night. After following my dad and watching him disappear down the street with Lily, I couldn't bring myself to sit at our dinner table and pretend I didn't know where he really was. Pretend he was working late. Pretend my mom wasn't quietly complicit in all of it. Layla let me crash at her place. I barely spoke. I just stared at the ceiling, my brain looping that hug, that smile, over and over again. That wasn't the look of guilt. That was contentment, like he was finally where he wanted to be. The next morning, while I was brushing my teeth with a borrowed toothbrush and trying not to cry, Layla came in holding her phone. She had this look on her face, half shock, half, "You need to see this." She handed me her phone. It was Claire's Facebook. She had posted a photo, a grainy, sunlit shot of a picnic table. On it, a cake, balloons, a banner that read, "Congrats, Lily." But what made my chest collapse was the caption, "So proud of our girl for getting into state. Couldn't have done it without your dad always cheering you on." Your dad, not her dad, not my co-parent, not he, not even his name, your dad. And then I noticed the date. That photo was from last year. All this time he's been celebrating her milestones. Not once has he ever posted about me getting into college. Not once did he even come to my campus visit. I was nothing but an obligation. I snapped, and maybe that's why I did what I did next. I didn't confront my dad. Not yet. I drove straight to Claire's house. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even know what I was going to say. I just knew I couldn't keep pretending like this was someone else's mess. I needed to see her. I needed to look into the eyes of the woman he chose to live a second life with. When she answered the door, her face twisted with confusion. I could tell she recognized me, maybe not instantly, but enough for her smile to vanish. I told her who I was. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just asked her to talk, and surprisingly, she let me in. We sat at her kitchen table. I couldn't stop scanning the room. Framed pictures of Lily, little notes on the fridge, a calendar with Dad's Day written in red marker. It made me feel sick, like I was visiting some alternate reality where I didn't exist. Then Claire dropped the biggest shock yet. She thought I knew. She thought my mom had told me everything years ago. She said my dad had been honest with her from the beginning, that he had another family, that I existed, that I was just one town over. She never reached out because she thought we were choosing not to be involved. She thought it was a mutual agreement. And here's where it got worse. She said for the first few years of Lily's life, my dad tried to keep us both in the picture. That picnic photo I found on the flash drive, she remembered it. We were toddlers. We used to see each other. Until my mom put a stop to it. She said my mom gave my dad an ultimatum. Stop seeing Claire and Lily, or lose me. And he chose me. Or at least, he said he did. But now? Now he was back with them. Every other weekend. Holidays when work was too busy. He'd found a way to have both again. Until now. I left Claire's house feeling hollow. Not angry. Not even sad. Just empty. I didn't cry on the drive back. I didn't scream into the steering wheel. I just stared at the road like I was watching a movie I couldn't pause. Everything I thought I knew about my family, my mom, my dad, me, was wrong. Claire had filled in all the missing pieces. And I still couldn't decide what was worse, that he'd been living this double life, or that he'd let me grow up believing I was the only one. By the time I got home, it was late. My mom's car was in the driveway, but the house was dark. I guess she didn't want to face me either. That was fine. I didn't want to talk to her. I went straight to my room, sat on my bed, and waited. I didn't have to wait long. Around 10:40 p.m., the front door opened. I heard the familiar jingle of keys, the soft thunk of boots being kicked off, and my dad's usual heavy sigh, like he'd had another long, exhausting day at work. Only this time, I knew where he'd really been. I didn't give him time to settle. I walked out into the hallway and met him at the foot of the stairs. He froze when he saw me. Maybe it was something in my eyes. Maybe he could tell that this time I knew. Before he could say a word, I asked him one question, just one. How many birthdays did you miss for mine because you were at hers? He blinked, opened his mouth, closed it again. He had no idea how to answer, and that silence told me everything. I didn't yell. I didn't sob. I just stood there, watching this man I used to think hung the moon. As the weight of years came crashing down on him, he finally whispered, "I never meant to hurt you." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the most cliché, gutless thing he could have said. He never meant to hurt me? He didn't forget one birthday, or one holiday, or one milestone. He missed dozens, and every single time, he had a choice. He could have been honest. He could have tried. He could have explained why I didn't have a sister growing up, why sometimes he came home smelling like a different kind of air, why my mom's face turned to stone when I asked questions about old pictures I didn't recognize. Instead, he built a lie so big it had rooms in it and a front porch and a daughter who got his full attention. I looked him dead in the eye and said something I didn't think I was capable of saying before. You didn't just lie to me. You left me, while still living in the same house. Then I turned around, walked back into my room, and locked the door. He didn't knock, not once. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I kept replaying that moment in the hallway. His face, pale and stunned, like he hadn't expected to ever get caught, like he truly believed he could keep us in separate corners of his life forever, like I was too naive or too obedient to ever question it. By sunrise, something inside me snapped, not in an explosive way. It was quiet, cold, clear. I was done being the daughter who waited for scraps of truth. If he wasn't going to tear this house of lies down, then I would, and I knew exactly where to start. Lily, she was innocent in all of this. We both were. Just two girls growing up with half a dad, neither of us realizing we were standing on opposite sides of the same lie. I still had Claire's address. I didn't ask permission. I didn't warn anyone. I just showed up that afternoon and knocked on the door, praying Lily, not Claire, would be the one to answer. She was. At first she looked confused, then wary. I told her my name, and for a second everything in her face froze. She stepped outside and closed the door behind her. I didn't waste time. I told her everything, from the photos I found, to following our dad to the park, to the night he walked through the door like nothing was wrong, and then the part that really mattered, that we had grown up just 20 minutes apart, that we had met before, that he used to let us play together until our mom made it stop. Her jaw was tight, her eyes flicked back and forth, like she was trying to hold something back. Then she said the one thing I wasn't prepared for. I always thought something was off. She told me that whenever she asked about her big sister, because yes, she had seen that photo too, her mom would just brush it off, say it was complicated, that she'd understand one day, but that day never came. She said Dad would visit, sure, bring her birthday gifts, take her out sometimes, but he never stayed long, never brought her around his real family. He always said we were better off separate, and the worst part? She believed him, until now. We sat on her porch for 2 hours, talking, swapping childhood stories that didn't quite line up, realizing how many things we both missed, how many times he must have canceled on both of us to keep up the illusion that no one knew about the other. And I saw it hit her, slowly, the same way it hit me. Our dad didn't just lie. He chose this. He built this. And we were the collateral. When I stood up to leave, she looked at me and said, "So what now?" I told her the truth. Now we make him answer for it. Lily and I didn't plan some grand revenge. There wasn't a secret plot or a dramatic speech rehearsed in a mirror. We just decided we were done being two shadows in one man's life, and if he wasn't going to bring the truth into the light, then we'd drag it there ourselves. We picked a Saturday afternoon when we knew he'd be home. No work, no visits, no excuses. I texted him at 1 p.m. "We need to talk. Don't leave." He replied within seconds. "I'm here. What's going on?" I didn't answer. By 1:45, Lily and I were parked outside my house. We sat in the car for a minute, both of us silent, staring at the front door like it was the gate to some twisted memory we both shared without ever being in it together. Finally, she looked over at me and said, "Let's do this." When he opened the door and saw both of us standing there, his face did something I'll never forget. It cracked, like he'd been hit in the chest. He didn't say a word, just stepped aside, eyes flicking between us like we were ghosts that showed up to haunt him. We walked past him and into the living room. My mom was in the kitchen. She saw us and froze. I didn't even acknowledge her. Lily sat on the couch. I stood, and for the first time in my life, I said exactly what I needed to say. "We're done letting you hide us from each other." He tried to speak, but I cut him off. I laid it all out, how I found the cards, the photos, the flash drive, how I followed him, how I stood in Claire's kitchen and saw the other version of my life he kept behind glass. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just told the truth. And then Lily spoke, and her voice? It was even steadier than mine. She told him that for years she felt like a backup plan, that she'd never understood why her dad loved her enough to visit, but never enough to stay, that she thought I was the lucky one. And now, she realized, neither of us was. We were both just halves of a man who didn't know how to be whole. He didn't defend himself. Not really. He said things like, "I did my best," and "you don't understand how complicated it was." He said he loved us both, but love doesn't leave this kind of wreckage behind. At one point, my mom tried to step in, tried to say it wasn't all his fault. That's when I snapped. "You helped him do this. You let him erase her. You let him lie to me for years." She didn't respond, just stood there with her arms crossed, looking like she wanted to disappear, and maybe she should have, because the silence in that room was louder than any screaming could have been. It was the sound of years unraveling all at once, the sound of two daughters finally standing on the same side of the line he drew between them. After everything was said, nobody moved. The living room felt like a crime scene, where all the evidence had been dumped out on the floor, but no one knew what to do with it. My dad stood there, still trying to form the right words, like he could explain away 17 years of double lives with a few half-truths and an apology. But there wasn't a single thing he could say that would make this go back to normal, because normal was fake. Normal was a lie. Lily looked at me, and I could tell. We were done here. We didn't come for his tears or explanations. We didn't need closure from a man who never gave us an honest beginning. We came so he'd have to look at us, both of us side by side, and realize that his secret was no longer something he could control. So we stood up. I told him we weren't going to be his burden anymore. We weren't going to carry the weight of his decisions on our backs while he bounced between two lives like it was normal. And Lily? She said something that hit harder than anything I'd said all day. "You don't get to love someone halfway and call it love." Then we left. We didn't slam the door. We didn't scream. We just walked out into the sunlight, two strangers with the same blood and a shared wreckage behind us. It's been 3 months. My mom hasn't said much since that day. She's still here, in the house, but it feels different, like we're just coexisting now. I think she's finally realizing what it feels like to be on the outside of a truth she once thought she could control. My dad tried to call, once. I didn't answer. He sent a message saying he wanted to start over. I didn't even read the rest. Lily and I talk almost every day now. It's weird how someone can go from being a ghost in a photo to family, but she gets it. All of it. The confusion, the betrayal, the numbness. We've been piecing together our stories, filling in the blanks he left between us, and the strange part? We're healing. Not because of him, but in spite of him. We're not sisters because he raised us to be. We're sisters because we chose to be. Because when the lies finally broke, we didn't hide from each other. We found each other. I still don't know if what my dad did was about love, or fear, or just selfishness. But here's what I do know. Secrets rot everything they touch. He spent years building walls to keep us apart, and in the end, those same walls are what kept him out. Forever.